Welcome to Impatient Histories, the History of Telling Time, Episode 2. I'm the Impatient Historian. In our first episode, we saw how some ancient peoples tracked celestial movements, and we defined the word time. Now, there are two primary means by which people measure and keep track of time. One way is with some form of clock, which governs the division of a single day into smaller units. The other way to keep time is with a calendar, which tracks large periods of time like days, months, and years. In this episode, we'll look at how some ancient societies created calendars based on their observations of the sun, moon, planets, and other phenomena. These days, we understand that the Earth and the planets revolve around our galaxy's very large star that we call the Sun. While ancient societies might not have known this, they could clearly see that the sun, moon, and other objects traveled across the sky in patterns that repeated themselves at regular intervals. Tracking and predicting these patterns helped societies to function. After all, it's handy to know the right day to plant your spring crops, or the precise day to celebrate an important religious festival so that you maintain a good relationship with your deity. But before we talk about ancient calendars, we need to understand some basic facts about the cycles of the sun and the moon. I'll keep it simple because astronomy is complicated, and this is a history show. We understand that the Earth travels around the sun over the course of the year, revolving on its axis as it goes. From our perspective on Earth, the sun appears to travel across the sky each day. Because of the tilt of the Earth on its axis, the sun's path across the sky changes throughout the year, and this is especially noticeable at sunset and sunrise. One solar year, also called a tropical year, is the time it takes the sun to return to the same place in the sky, and that is approximately 365.242 days. That extra quarter day is why many societies have incorporated a leap year to account for the extra time that builds up. The solar year determines the change of seasons and agricultural activities. And the sun wasn't the only means of measuring the passage of time. Many societies have measured the passage of time by the phases of the moon. One lunar month, the amount of time between two new moons, is about 29.5 days. 29.5-day months don't fit into a solar year. After 12 lunar months, roughly 11 days remain in the year. By the way, this discrepancy in time between the lunar and solar calendars is referred to as an epact, and English speakers have been using this word to reconcile the solar and lunar calendars since the 16th century. And what about planets? They have cycles of their own. So let's look at how some ancient societies developed calendars to mark the passage of time via the sun, moon, and other celestial bodies. As far as archaeologists are aware, Sumer was the first society to develop an official calendar around 3000 BC. The Sumerian calendar was lunar, with 12 29 to 30-day months that began with each new moon. Every few years, they added a month to keep the calendar on track with the seasons. By 3000 BC, the ancient Egyptians had two calendars, a lunar and a solar. In ancient Egypt, the most important event each year was the annual flooding of the Nile, which occurred after the heliacal rising of the star Sirius. The annual appearance of Sirius on the horizon just before dawn marked the start of the Egyptian New Year. Egypt's lunar calendar began at the new year and contained 12 29 to 30-day months that corresponded with the phases of the moon. Since 12 lunar months fall short of the solar year by about 11 days, the Egyptians threw in a 13th month every few years so that the lunar calendar kept some correlation to the agricultural year. This lunar calendar was used for religious purposes and daily life. The Egyptians had a second calendar based on the solar year, and we believe that they were the first society to have a true solar calendar of 365 days. This calendar served administrative purposes and contained 12 30-day months. If you're quick at math, you'll notice that leaves 5 extra days. Well, the Egyptians added 5 days to the end of their calendar and made good use of that time as a holiday to celebrate their most important gods. Now, the Egyptian lunar calendar took its lead from the rising of Sirius, but the solar calendar, which was a quarter day short of a true solar year, just followed itself each year and gradually fell out of step with the lunar calendar. It made a complete cycle through the solar year every 1,460 years. In 46 BC, Julius Caesar added a leap year day to the Egyptian solar calendar to keep it more in line with the actual solar year. That's enough for now. In our next episode, we'll talk more about ancient calendars. Thanks for watching episode 2 of Impatient History, The History of Telling Time.